you're like, oh,
I did
shit.
that was like probably like one of my second favorite parts of the game is basically when you know like they're making the mistake and they're just like and then you just like see them go off into the grass.
Yeah,
just
or
like,
if you bump into
what
them, you're like,
happened?
oh, you want to play dirty bitch? We can play fucking. You're like, damn. Why did you have it, bro?
Yeah. Oh, they're intense.
Starting off, we will introduce this month's game with a scripted segment giving you all the details, and then we will go into our unscripted thoughts about the game shortly afterwards. I'm Sandy, and with me always is Ben Desert. So without further ado, enjoy.
R-Racing Evolution is Namco's bold spin-off from the classic Ridge Racer series, reimagined with a more story-driven, realistic vibe, while still nodding to its arcade roots. So instead of sticking to the Fast and Furious formula, Namco set out to craft a game that blends cinematic storytelling with deep technical innovation. Under the guidance of director Hiroshi Okamoto, producer Shunichi Kondo, and lead designer Hideki Fujiwara, the team pushed the envelope by apparently holding daily brainstorming sessions to nail down features like the pressure system, which is a mechanic in the game that simulates the stress of high-speed racing to mess with your AI rivals, and an obsessive tuning system that lets you adjust everything from wheel firmness to ABS calibration. But the heart of the story centers on Rena, an ambulance driver with an insatiable need for speed whose life is forever changed when racing team manager Stefan spots her raw talent during a high-stakes emergency run. Thrust into the competitive world of professional racing, Rena embarks on a journey filled with personal challenges and high-octane action. Her narrative is thinly layered with moments of self-discovery as she navigates the pressures of the racetrack through all too brief CG cutscenes, alongside a cast of forgettable rivals, except for the standout Gina.
I see. Well, welcome to the big leagues, Rena. I hope they don't eat you alive. At least not too quickly.
R-Racing Evolution, or R, introduces a host of innovative features designed to redefine the racing genre. So there's the aforementioned pressure system and the dynamic tuning system that allows players to fine-tune vehicle settings not only before the race, but they can also do it on the fly during the heat of competition. Complementing these mechanics is a state-of-the-art vehicle scanning technology that renders impressively detailed car models, and a dynamic pit crew that provides real-time commentary, enhancing the immersive experience. The game's eclectic soundtrack, comprising 11 meticulously curated tracks with standout compositions like Monte Carlo, further fuels the adrenaline and sets the perfect tone for each race. During its marketing cycle, Namco positioned R-Racing Evolution as a revolutionary step forward in the racing genre. Promotional campaigns featured CG cinematic trailers and bold imagery that highlighted Rena's transformation from an everyday ambulance driver to a professional racer, showcasing high-octane race sequences against gritty urban backdrop and sleek, hyper-realistic car models. Key talking points centered on the pressure system, the dynamic on-the-fly tuning, and the soundtrack. From what we can tell, this multifaceted campaign aimed to excite Ridge Racer fans and attract new players by sort of promising a fresh, narrative-rich experience that pushed the boundaries of what a racing game could be. But despite its fresh mechanics and ambitious narrative, R-Racing Evolution hit a rough patch during the fiercely competitive holiday season of 2003. It was up against heavy hitters like Call of Duty, Need for Speed, Medal of Honor, Rising Sun, Mario Kart Double Dash. Critics were split on R-Racing. Some praised the realistic vehicle scanning, the dynamic pit crew commentary, the deep tuning options, and on-the-fly adjustments, while others pointed to its limited track selection, clunky collision physics, and a narrative that never quite reached its full potential. Many felt that this ambitious mix resulted in an identity crisis, leaving traditional Ridge Racer fans yearning for more arcade-style gameplay and hardcore race sim enthusiasts wanting more depth. Following R-Race Evolution, Namco reassessed the direction of the Ridge Racer series. Although its feature set and narrative ambition garnered some praise, the experimental approach didn't quite resonate with the broader audience. Recognizing the strong appeal of its arcade heritage, Namco returned to the fast-paced, visually spectacular racing formula that defined the series in subsequent titles. This shift underscored a hard-won lesson that sometimes the fastest route to success is sticking with what you know best. In the end, it may not have dominated every race, but its unique blend of innovation and heart still drives all the way to back of the rack. Episode 2.
Episode 2. Let me sit the
Episode 2, presentation. Here we are. You and me and you.
Us and I.
Us and just the two of us as Will Smith. Actually, whose song is that originally? It's not Will Smith's original song. It's not Marvin Gaye, is it? It's some other nigga. I don't know. Yeah, look Chat GPT it.
Bill Withers is Bill Withers.
Bill, there we go. I was like Bill Withers. Yeah. Okay. So, what's your history with R racing? First time hearing about it, what is it?
My first time hearing about R racing was when we decided to play this for the podcast.
So, you never saw it a lot. Like, you didn't see just the cover in magazines? No, huh? Nothing?
Nothing. Nada. But to be fair, I've never really been like a racing aficionado. Of course, every kid's played Need for Speed or, Midnight Club and stuff like that. But I never played them because I went out of my way to get those. Those were always, like, gifted to me as a kid. Or, like, somebody had it and I owned it or something like that. So I never really was like, oh, what's this Ridge Racer? It's probably another racing game with cars. Okay, whatever. So I skipped it. And a lot of the Ridge Racer series until Type 4. When you have those little emulation trips down PS1 lane, and I like it. I like Ridge Racer.
Yeah. Wait, so what's your history then with video games? I know you gave us a little bit of that, but do you remember was it Need for Speed Underground, like your first racing game? Like, did you play them in the arcade? What's your history with
first racing game? Not counting Mario Kart. I would
no, Mario, I would count that as a racing game, yeah.
Yeah, not counting Mario Kart. Like, one of these style racing games was probably Need for Speed Carbon.
Okay.
And I think I played Need for Speed Carbon, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and then I played a lot of Burnout Paradise. And that's really it. I didn't really play racing games like that. It was either shooting or role playing games.
Sports game. What about sports games?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you need your.
It's weird.
Biannual basketball game or something.
Because it's weird, because racing and sports are sort of like in the same genre. Like, they're always like racing / sports games. That's like they're always lumped together. Although I don't know why it wouldn't just be sports games, and then because racing is a sport, so I don't know. But yeah, for me, R racing was a definite back of the rack game because it was always on like the shelf for like $5 all the time. I feel like it caught my eye because of the woman on the front, and most racing games only had a car on the front. Like, it's rare that they had a character unless it was like a kart racer or like a fucking.
What's the one where you can date the girls? Juiced? I think that's the only other racing game I know that has a woman on the cover like that.
Yeah. It looks very like Trick My Ride type of shit. Like, it looks. Yeah. So, R racing was just around all the time, and it was one of the cheapest like racing games. I think what really turned me on to it was probably seeing, maybe a couple of years back, just, those videos that we used to watch where it's like every PlayStation or every GameCube game, and I saw this one, and I saw like the cutscenes, and I was like, wait, there was a game in 2003 or whatever that had like a story mode? Because I remember like being young, and I was always really into racing games. I had, Choroku was my pick. This is also my pick. I've always just liked quirky sort of racing games. Not kart racers, but I liked when they did something different, because I've always liked, cars to a certain degree. I'm not like a gearhead or like a, I don't know much about cars in real life.
I like the look of the cars, though.
Yeah. I've always liked the way they're translated into games, and this one was interesting. But my history with racing games actually goes back a little to like the arcade machines. I remember playing like Outrun. Outrun was probably like one of my favorites. I was like, I love this so much. So anytime there's like like a demake or a remake of something that's like Outrun, I'm like on top of it. One of the more recent ones is like Horizon Chase.
Yes.
And that, and then there's some other ones of that are actually more stylistically closer to Outrun. The names escape me, but obviously this renaissance of like pixel games and stuff. And
yeah, there was a 1980 X or something. It was it's something with the X in the name like that, but it was like a combination of a bunch of retro style games. Like it had like a beat 'em up section, it had an Outrun section to go to each different level and stuff like that. That's the most Outrun-ish game other than Horizon that I played.
Yeah. God, I can't. There's one that I want to recommend, but I cannot remember the name. But anyways, I've always really loved the genre, and I think what really made me love the genre, like, okay, I like racing games, but a very specific type of racing game, was probably MotorStorm Apocalypse and Split Second. So when those two hit the market, which was like early PS3 days, I was like, damn, yeah, because I played Gran Turismo and all that, but they were just too like for people
lame.
that like cars. Like it was for people that like it almost didn't even feel like it was for gamers, I guess.
Right.
Like, and I guess I kind of felt that way with sports games too. I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's for. It feels like it's for.
I get what you mean,
people.
where it's like you have to already have like a lot of tangible knowledge about this topic in order to enjoy it thoroughly, or else you'll just be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm shooting the ball in the hoop.
You want to know the players, you want to know the teams, you want to know, like all the seasons, and the same with racing games where it's like you want to know the cars, you want to know the tracks and how the cars operate. And some of the GTA games don't really hold your hand entirely. There's a lot of racing games that don't give you like a good tutorialization of what the granular settings are. It always kind of put me off. I'm like, dude, I don't know what this is,
I don't know what the front rear brake rotor tune-up does. I don't know what that does.
Yeah. And in some way I thought like learning about those things would help your real life knowledge. Like, when I had car problems, be like, oh yeah, the fucking CV axle needs to be tuned to, like, you know what I mean?
To be adjusted a little bit firmer and to make it
yeah, it's just not firm, the firmness. But actually, let me step back a little bit, because now that I'm thinking about it, GameCube Need for Speed Underground was probably the first racing game that I like really got into, and then MotorStorm Apocalypse and Split Second, where I was like, I fuck with racing games. Like, I'd be there day one for them because like I just enjoyed them to some degree.
Yeah, I think. I think Need for Speed or Hot Pursuit Remastered went on to. It was the one on PS3. I played that one the most, but I think I only played it because everybody else played it, and we would just all be online racing in the open world while I blast Party Next Door. Because you could download your songs on your PS3 and then play them in the game. So I just had a bunch of songs downloaded from DatPiff.
Yeah. I think what was the other one? That's Need for Speed. No, Burnout Paradise. That was another one that was huge, and I remember like I was like, yeah, this is sick. Racing games though are very limited a lot of the time, and I think that's why there's not a lot of people that get too into them. They're not niche, I would say. I mean, do you think racing games are more popular than like RPGs? Like, if you had to say, like, are there more RPG players versus racing?
This is an interesting conversation, because I feel like racing games are kind of becoming niche now. I feel like RPGs have overtaken it a lot, because I remember as a kid, everybody played a Need for Speed or a Midnight Club or Burn. Like everybody, you go to somebody's house, they had a racing game that
they had eight. They had 8 fucking Burnouts, 3 Need for Speeds. I'm like,
exactly. Like, I just ran it again on Carbon. I just did it again. Played another playthrough of Most Wanted. Like, I had a friend that would play Need for Speed Carbon over and over and over again, and he would do like 1 car challenges, and I would just be like, "What are you playing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just playing Need for Speed Carbon again." when we were like little kids, and I was like, bro, you don't want to play GTA or something? Like, get your life together. I think what it is, and I think this is the issue that I have a lot when it comes to racing games, is there's a sense that once you've played one, you've played them all, when that isn't necessarily the case. But it's easy to write it off like that, of like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a bunch of races, upgrade my car, and then do a bunch of races faster, and then finish the game. But a lot of racing games do have a lot more to them. Like Need for Speed Unbound looks really cool, but I should play that. I have it. I should
see
play
what it is this is where we're out of our depth in some sense, because you talked about a couple episodes ago about game feel. I think you mentioned that in last season in one of the episodes. And racing games, I think, kind of like fighting games, where it's like it's all about the feel. So like for us, it all feels the same, like going from, well, generally speaking, I think we could tell a Street Fighter from a Mortal Kombat, but I think for racing games, it's like I can tell like this game, the physics here they don't feel right. When I was looking at the reviews for this game, a lot of people mentioned the things that I couldn't pick up on because I don't play racing games for like the feel entirely, or I don't understand the feel.
I get you. Yeah, I'm a vibes person when it comes to racing games. I think that's why I liked Carbon more than Most Wanted. Or like a Midnight Club, even though like their physics are a little bit crazy or wonky compared to like a normal racing game. I kind of just like it for the vibe of nighttime crew racing over the sophistication of, like, we'll talk about it later with our racing, but just the idea of being like a licensed professional racer doing your tracks and there's nobody else on there. Like, I like the mystique of like, oh shit, I just hit a pedestrian. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into the presentation of this game. We're sort of trying to be more deliberate with with all of our sort of categories here. So presentation, we're breaking it down into a couple of sections so that it's easier to follow along with what we're talking about and it's more coherent. So UI, art direction, graphics, music, and sound. And I have a question for you at the end of that.
Okay. I'm scared.
So so I'm testing you. And at the end, I'm going to see how many, right answers you got. And if you fail, you owe me Monster Hunter Wilds.
It's actually funny that you say that because there's actually a clip I just clipped. It's probably going to be, by the time you're watching this, it's going to be the clip. But there was a clip where you said, next episode, you have to remember the names of the cars. Don't test me.
Yeah, no. I was going to write something down, but I'm like, what does it matter? I mean, it might like.
I mean, we had the Lancer, we had the Elise, we had the Ford, the Focus.
Yeah, you had the Fiats. You had some classic muscle cars, GTOs, and all that. But
I know my cars. Throwing my hands up.
It's exactly. All right. Well, let's jump in at UI. What did you think?
Man, that UI is so clean. You can eat off of it. It's so clean. Like, simplicity and minimalism is almost an art form that sometimes feels lost when you look at more modern titles. When you look at this, it does exactly what it needs to do. It doesn't do anything more, and it looks good because of that. Like, it could have went way wild and had, like, I don't know, like sound bars popping off the side to go with the oonts music, or they could have had, like, I don't know, man. They could have had the anime girl standing in the corner telling you what to do or something like that. They could have went wild with the UI, was what I'm saying, and they didn't go wild. They just gave you exactly what you needed, and they explained it succinctly, and I think that was all it needed to do, especially for how small this game is. It didn't have to go any further than what it did.
Yeah. It's funny because the sleek UI almost is representative of the amount of content that there is in this game. Exactly. It feels like, oh, hey, there's not much here, so here's like a very sleek, simple
Straight to the point.
minimalistic sort of menu. But I mean, it's functional. And, I think racing games of this era also, like, they all have like the slickest menus for some reason, like really beautiful UI. I don't know what it was at some point after the 2000s where there's, Gran Turismo really,
it was a blueprint.
First. Yeah, have you seen those menus even on the first PS1 version?
Yes.
It's crazy. It's like, why is this so slick and so cool but readable? And it's probably even more readable in Japanese because of the way some of the like menus transition and the way the text is like, put into tabs. But it's amazing. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like, it's almost as if they're overcompensating, It's like style over substance.
Yeah, where they're like, I could have went off, but I didn't. And it's like, you think about like the rest of Ridge Racer, the whole franchise, it's like the entire franchise is over the top. So it's interesting that this one isn't, or at least from the Ridge Racers that I've played. I've only played the PSP one, Ridge Racer Type 4, and this one, and the Vita one, and that's it.
Yeah. I think the UI, all like the grays and the whites, really work to accent how good some of the cars look as well. Because when you're in those menus, it's highlighting the vehicles. But you know what I noticed? When you go to select a track in the UI, it doesn't show the fucking... Yeah, I'm like, what am I selecting? It just says the name of the track, but what is the track like? I guess it gives you like the shape of it, but it doesn't show you the track like I thought it would. You know what I mean? Or is that
it caught me a couple times like that too when they started doing the reverse tracks of other tracks, and I'd be like, oh, this is a brand new track. And then you play it, and it's like, oh, it's just this one reversed. No. Oh, you got my name.
Yeah. Which I think is really weird. But, I mean, like the UI works. It's functional, though I think we both had one gripe, and that's the location of where the save function is.
Yes.
So you boot the game, you hit the start menu, you have that main menu, you have all your options. You have Racer Life, you have Time Attack, Arcade, all that. At the very bottom, options, and then save and load. Once you go into Racer Life, which is like the main campaign, you don't... there's no save or load option. Yeah. And for anyone listening that has not played this or knows what games are like or were like in the 2000s, there was no autosave typically. So
you had to go back and manually save. I got to like one of this race that we all notoriously were struggling with, and I beat it, and I was like, I'm turning this game off for a second. I'm gonna go take a walk, go to the store. I'll come back and I'll beat the rest of this game. And I came back and I realized, oh, it didn't save. Mm-hmm. So I had to go through and play through the entire game again up until that point. And I was trying to figure out, like, where do I go to save? And it turns out you have to exit out of Racing Life, go all the way to the main menu, options, and then you can click save.
Which doesn't feel intuitive for some reason. I was scared to back out of Racing Life because it says, like, oh, you're going to lose... Like,
your process, in
racing, yeah. It says, like, you're going to lose your place. And then if you're in the menus in Racing Life... It says, like, are you sure? And I'm like, what do you mean, am I sure? Why? Yeah, just, I need to save.
Yeah.
What else? Like, what else am I going to do? So, I think that was a weird decision.
To other games, once you finish a race or something like that, it always has a save option, especially with older PlayStation 2 games, and it'll be like saving, checking your memory card for data, and doing the whole saving process, but... it didn't pop up, so I was just like, maybe this game just autos. Because, I mean, some games just do that. Some games just auto-save, and you never know. It's just in the background, casually. So, I mean...
yeah, and that's why they started to put the, just so you know, this game auto-saves. You know, if you see this icon, you know, and, like... that. I mean, so many games do that now. Even, well, not even now, but, like... it's a standard now, but when they started to do it, they really made it a prominent, like, if you see this icon, don't turn off your your PlayStation, your GameCube, just keep it on because it's auto-saving.
You kind of take for granted how much of a quality of life feature auto-saving is when you actually have to save consistently.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure they had the ability to do it back then anyways, but it just wasn't a standard feature yet. So I was
watching a video that was explaining the origin of the PlayStation. And I do know that they were saying that Nintendo was really wanted to do CDs, but was apprehensive because of the fact that CD-ROMs, you had to get a separate peripheral to save.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because cartridges don't really require a separate, like a separate not memorabilia. Separate device, I guess, to save like a memory card and all that.
You can just save straight to the cartridge instead of having to just read the CD.
Right. Let's talk about art direction, which is a little bit of what the UI is, but overall art direction. What did you think? What are your thoughts? Because I feel like this game is our shit in some way, but go on.
It is. There's one standout track that I wanted to talk about during the final race of the story mode, where there's the NASCAR track. Mm-hmm. I thought that was the coolest shot I've ever seen in a racing game, where it's like the helicopter over top of the track as it's doing the introduction and like flying around, and you can hear the crowd cheering. I thought it gave me chills. It was such a good shot. And there's a lot of shots like that when you're like watching the replay of a race or something of the sorts like that you're like, that's a good shot right there. Like zooming around the corner and you catch me right before I zoom around. Like, that's cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah, it's a very, what do you call it? Like, it is a very realistic sort of style that they went with for the cutscenes and the intros. I don't think it's not something that I haven't seen in like other racing games, but it definitely adds a little bit of flair to this. And I think the whole art direction was sleek and realistic and minimalist. I think they wanted it to feel, in some sense they wanted it to feel a bit more adult almost than their previous offerings in the Ridge Racer series, because it was more arcadey. Yeah. So I think they wanted to be less playful with colors, playful with, although, that opening cutscene is pretty cartoony, but
we gotta go through this ambulance right here. Let's go.
Yeah, and the over the top sort of voice acting, which is a lot of people didn't like, which is kind of funny.
But onto your realism point, that does add in, because like this, I believe this is the first racing game I've ever played where there's like radio chatter and call outs. Like, I feel like I'm in a professional pit where they're like, good on that cornering, and like, you can almost pass them, just get on the next bend, and you're 3 seconds behind this person. Like, that like dynamic feedback always kept me immersed when they were like, oh yeah, you can pass them next turn, just keep going. Like, and you can successfully do it if you do it correctly. And I thought that was very unique for it to do, because they could have just been like, you're almost there, second lap, and left it at that and left you in complete silence.
Yeah, I do think it was very, I think it was like one of my favorite aspects of the game. I would say that it really added to the overall like identity of the game, where you feel like you're, I guess we'll talk about characters, but you feel like you're Rena in some sense. You feel like you're in the driver's seat, because they're talking to you and they're watching like your turns, and like, oh, that was the perfect way to enter that bend. That was a perfect exit out of that, get ready for cornering. Like, it's so reactive. And after a while, they start to repeat the same thing. So it doesn't feel as dynamic when you're, a couple hours in, but it's still like real tangible feedback when you're driving. And there's someone in the pit that is responding to every action that you're taking and telling you if it was good or bad, and you can sort of like learn from it.
Yeah, but they're like, slow down around that turn. You gotta go in slower around this bend.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Hey, my favorite was when they would be like, quit playing around with that guy and lose him. I'm like, I'm trying. I can't do anything.
Like, he's behind me, bro. What do you want me to do?
Like, quit toying around with him. I'm just like,
this guy's been tailing you for ages. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like,
how? Throw a green shell behind me? The fuck?
That's really how they speak, as if like it's like, I don't know. It's really silly, but I think that added over like to the feel for sure, and it was cool. And the voice acting on it, the voice of Stefan, his voice is so nostalgic to me because he also does a voiceover in Samurai Champloo. He voices a detective samurai, and he kind of narrates the entire series. And so it was kind of cool hearing his voice be the sort of like the old curmudgeon-y, like whatever the fuck he is. I don't even want to say like father figure, but it was cool to have him be like this retired racer, you know, and talk you through it.
That's very actually interesting, especially because we're about to play Samurai Champloo, and I just watched another episode of Samurai Champloo, like in prep. Like I've been rewatching the series.
Oh shit! Okay.
I forgot all about the detective guy, but I'm only on like episode 4, so like.
Oh yeah. He I don't think he narrates every episode, but he's
there.
Definitely a narrator throughout, for sure.
I'll definitely notice it now, especially because after I played this, so I'll definitely notice it now. But once I go back, I edit this episode, I'll be like, oh.
And then we also have the other voice actor.
Steve Bloom is in this game, right?
Yeah, Steve. Yeah. Steve Bloom.
He's in everything, man.
Of course, he's in everything. It's like, what did we expect? You know, wouldn't be surprised if Laura Bailey did. Rena or did we actually?
Hold on, bro.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Let's see the voice cast right now. Hold on. I continue with your point though while I find this information.
But yeah, so I think just overall the voice acting over the top, but I think that when they're speaking to you, when it's not in cutscenes, when they're speaking to you in actual gameplay while you're racing, I think it really, really works. And it's I don't think I've played a racing game that's not like because rally games, like rally racing games, they have someone with you in the pit and they'll like say like, oh, hard left, 200 miles, or 200 meters, soft right, we got a hairpin coming up, and so they'll react and they'll talk to you about the track. But the way that this feels, where it feels like you got someone in your ear sort of like guiding you and giving you feedback, is like really, really cool. I think there is overall like a very 2000 style to it. I would say from that opening CG cutscene, the way that like the camera's moving, some of like
I do agree. It has a very Y2K vibe.
Yeah.
Like this is in the aesthetic of that time, or this is what everybody nostalgia pulls from.
Exactly, yeah. And it could be that it wasn't even intentional, but that's just that was the CG fidelity that they had back then. And so I did note that they did use a lot of bloom in their cutscenes, which was a hallmark of like early 2000s cinema styles. I do think that it does try to feel cinematic, so we talked about that. And I think it really employs the rule of cool in a lot of its cutscenes, where it's just trying to be as cool as it is while leveraging some of the sex appeal, of the characters. But other than that, you don't get much in a lot of those cutscenes. And we'll talk about that in the story, but it's just like they're very brief. It has a shot of, Gina's like chest, or when Rena is in the shower.
Yeah, she has it not zipped up all the way. She has it all the way down here. Stupid, like.
Yeah. There's a shot where she's like, it's after a race and she's talking to the press, and it's a shot of her chest while she's sitting down, but it's focused on the mic, so her chest is out of focus, and it's slowly panning up. But it's like, what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Why would you have this shot? But there's really nothing to like. It's what I'm kind of surprised is that the CG cutscenes don't contain more racing. I thought that was really, really strange.
But to be fair, the CGI cutscenes
makes sense.
Yeah, but the CGI cutscenes do have their own like distinct art style that's different from the gameplay. Like it's very, I don't know how to describe this style of like Japanese games, like a Dead or Alive or a Ninja Gaiden, where it's like hyper realistic but still anime.
Right. Well, it's very Japanese, is what it is.
Yeah,
it's like
you can tell. It's like Advent Children. It looks very Advent Children-ish.
Oh yeah. Definitely the quality of the CG is very like Advent Children, that's for sure.
But like compared to the actual gameplay, which is hyper realistic, like super high poly cars, which bears a bigger question as to why more racing games don't have super stylized graphics. But we'll talk about that later.
Choro Q. That's
Shout
all
out
I'm gonna
Choro
say.
Q. Shout out
Shout out
Choro Q.
Choro Q. And Road Trip. And what is it? Auto
Modelista.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon. Hashtag.
Yeah, but speaking on the really detailed car models, the graphics, I thought, and this is where I'm sure you feel the same, but we're sort of in the minority here, especially at the time. I felt that the graphics were stunning. I thought that the car models looked amazing, especially
Insane.
when you're like viewing them in like the model viewer. Jesus Christ, it looked so amazing on a CRT. I'm just like, this looks like
It looks next
they
gen.
just look incredible. Yeah,
It looks like an early Xbox 360 title, but it's an early 6th generation title, which is crazy to think about. Like, this game came out like 2003?
2003, yeah.
Like, that's
It's insane. And you know what? What's crazier is that when it was released, the graphics were criticized. The way, like, they were saying that they weren't good graphics, that they weren't bad graphics, but they were just like, we've seen better, So Need for Speed and Gran Turismo were apparently doing it a lot better. And so,
And I wonder if that's because of the lighting, because all of the tracks take place during the day in this game, compared to a lot of racing games of the time, like Midnight Club, Need for Speed, SRS. All those games take place at nighttime, most racing games. So other than like Burnout, you're not really going to get a daytime match. So
that's such a good point. I don't even...
Maybe they're just not used to the daytime lighting on the cars. So they're just like, it doesn't look good. Because I can agree. When you look at the environments and the way that the tracks are set up, you can tell, like, okay, yeah, this is obviously a GameCube title. But the actual cars, they're not supposed to shine like that. Not on no GameCube.
Actually, something that's interesting about that is that I do think they were using two models. One for the vehicle select screen. That model and the way like the light reflected on it, the detail, that model's not in game.
Because the Ford Focus model, I took a long moment to look at the Ford Focus model because that was my first car that I ever had, was that exact 2004 Ford Focus right there with the hatchback. Like, that was my first car.
Right.
Same color and everything. So I was like, oh, shit, let me look at my car real quick. And I'm like watching it around. I'm like, this looks like my car, like in a garage. Like,
right, yeah. And then when you got it in the actual
and it just looked like a pretty static model. But I don't know if that's just because like skyboxes or whatever, the camera that's behind you or something like that is deposing something on there.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Me and Elise were actually talking about it because we were going through some of the cars and how great they look on the vehicle select screen. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, they must have like did a photorealistic scan of all the vehicles and then like wrapped it around a model, right? And then they must have done something different for the in-game models that you actually can like move around and stuff. Because maybe it would have been too taxing to have all the textures.
Because you have to render
cars.
like 8 different super stylized cars and the track.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, regardless, I thought they still looked pretty solid. So I mean, I didn't really have an issue. But people did in the past, and it's kind of surprising looking back and being like, "Wow, you guys thought this was ass." We're over here like salivating.
Bro. I can't trust nobody back in the day, but they said Musashi looked bad. You're telling me Musashi Samurai Legends doesn't look good?
Insane. Yeah.
They're just
compared to what?
They don't know no better.
It's because I think it was like the CRT effect. Like they just couldn't tell. It was like, we don't know what.
Yeah, they had too much saturation on their CRT. And they were like, this shit looks like ass.
You ever go over to your friend's house and they have like the contrast up like
all the way up?
And I'm like, what are you doing? Can I turn this down? No, but then I can't see.
It looks bright, bro. I like that. No, bro, please. Turn it down for your own sanity, bro. It's gonna bleed, bro. Please. I'm trying to help you.
Yes. It went. People were insane. People were fucking insane.
I used to be one of those people. Saturation all the way up, brightness all the way up.
That's
contrast.
Crazy.
Turn it down. I used to be one of those people, bro. I used to. Not no more, bro. I learned the ways of
When
color.
did you learn?
I learned when I played League of Legends for a really, really long time, and it bled on my laptop monitor. The bottom row of the League of Legends, like the mini map and all that shit in the UI, it was like burnt into my laptop. No matter what I did.
Fucking God, that's insane.
And I was like, yeah, I need to not do that ever again. Keep it default settings.
All right. Well, now that we've talked about the graphics, our direction and UI, what do you think? And this is probably our favorite section to talk about: music and sound.
Oh man! First of all, what's your favorite track?
I said that my favorite track was Monte Carlo, and then a close second was Divas and Liquid Soul, I think. I hate
Rising.
Rising is crazy.
I like Monte Carlo. I did like Monte Carlo. I liked all of the songs. There wasn't a bad song, but there's definitely songs that I liked a lot more than other songs. I think Carmi was definitely like top one for me. I think that was the one. And I'm going to say it right now. Until somebody proves otherwise, this is soundtrack of the year. I'm calling it now, bro. Nothing's going to change my mind. I'm going to be biased to every soundtrack from here on out for the rest of the year until I hear something better than this.
Well, see, that's the problem, is that the precedent has been set. Well, Jeanne d'Arc, we did not like the soundtrack. And then this comes along, and it's obviously fitting with a lot of our musical sensibilities, especially for you, because it does have some techno. Rising, I think, is one of the more techno forward songs on there. So we got, I don't know what Wet's soundtrack is like. I don't know what NFL Blitz, or wait, what is it called? NFL Blitz?
Blitz the League is
Blitz the League. What?
It's the most like. It's the most.
Is it like generic hip hop sound or something? 2000s,
bro,
like rock
like,
or something?
You know, we gotta get on the grind. Gotta step on the metal. It's that type.
I don't know why I can.
That like fucking. What's that one song? It's like Talib Kweli dilated people's ass fucking raps, bro.
I'm thinking, okay, so Street Fighter V. Do you remember like the intro or like the world map song of Street Fighter V?
I fuck with most of Street Fighter V songs. No, that's
Street
Fighter 4. That's Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 4 is the one that's like.
Okay, my bad. Street Fighter 6. I'm talking about the more recent release, Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, Street Fighter 6 has some very ass hip hop music. It's the same situation.
I just remember
hip hop by white
screen.
people.
Yeah, or by, I don't know who, the Japanese people? I don't know, just people that just didn't have a good sense of urban. I have no clue. No clue, but
White does have some standout tracks, but we'll talk about that next episode.
Okay. Did you already listen to the?
No, there's just
OST?
one particular song that's been, which is one of the main reasons why I picked the game, is because of the demo. There's like the song when you go into like rage mode, it plays one particular song when you're in rage mode, and I think it's like, I don't know if it's a real song or not, if it was made for the game, but that song's just been stuck in my head every time I think of that song. I mean, I think of that game, I think of that song. So, but I don't know if like I don't remember anything else about the game, so I don't know if that's like the thing or not, but it might be annoying as shit when I listen to play the full game.
When I was looking at gameplay, I don't even think I was paying attention to the music. But I mean, what else do we got? We have Rumble Roses. I have no clue what the
that might. No, actually, hold on. I have used Rumble Roses for one of the mixes. And by the time that we play Rumble Roses, that song's going to be. I think it's already in the mix. Actually, I think it's actually in one of the mixes that's already dropped. I don't know.
Okay.
There's a Rumble Roses song. There's a couple of Rumble Roses songs in there.
What else do we have?
We got Suffering. Suffering is not going to be good.
Okay.
X-Men Destiny, not going to be good.
I doubt that'll be good,
Yeah. What else do we have? Samurai Champloo? Samurai
Champloo might be. I mean, it's Suda51, right? Doing the.
Does Nujabes? Did he do the soundtrack for the game?
I don't think so. I think it's
or they probably
Suda51's like
yeah, they probably got a
in-house
Nujabes
composer or something.
imitator for.
It's probably.
That's probably exactly what they got for the fucking game, bro.
And that makes sense.
Binary domain.
Oh right, yeah. That could. I don't know. I feel like that could have like one or two standout tracks. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
To be fair, it's less of a soundtrack. I mean, there's only 12 songs on this bitch.
Yeah.
There's like, it's really strange and it feels really limited. It's like an album. It was like, yo, let's just get our Ridge Racer composers, from across the series. Let's get them all together, and then we'll just make 12 records, and you got yourself a 12-song album. I do think it's a bit limited in that. It's a short game, but I mean, if you're doing all the event challenges, if you're doing, time attack, I want to choose more than just the 12 songs. I'm kind of surprised that there was only 12 on there. I think that's sort of
because you do more than 12 races. So like by the time that you finish, you're kind of just hitting random at that point and just being like, whatever. I'm just gonna play whatever's playing. Like,
yeah.
You never really feel. I like the idea of being able to choose whatever song you want to listen to during the race. I really like that.
Right.
I always like games that allow you to do that once you build up your repertoire of the soundtrack. But I don't know.
I will say though,
it could have been more, but did it need to be more?
That's a good question. I think so. I think it should have been double. I do think it should have been a solid 24 minimum. And I want to add too, with what you're saying, that you're able to pick the song before the track. I like it more when they give you a preview button, because I don't know half these songs until like I've played 12 races that have, because I'm like, I don't know what this song Rising T10 Time.
Okay, there is one bad song.
name.
Now that I think about it, because I remember clicking it, and when the race starts, the one song that goes like
Boombox?
ding, it's like ding 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 ding. Like it starts like that. It starts with like, oh man, it's like one of the main songs. I think it's like song 2 or something like that. But it starts like dun 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 dun. Like it's like a piano or something like that, or it's like a fake mirror, like salsa to it a little bit. It's weird.
That sounds like the one I like, Liquid Soul, I think.
Hold on, I'm going to YouTube
Yeah,
right now.
play it right now. Play it.
Play it right now.
There was, I know I didn't like Boombox, and then there was like the Time one that was just so grating to me. I was like, I just cannot handle this song right now.
It's not Liquid Soul. Liquid Soul is one of the good ones.
Okay. Is it?
I'm going through the whole soundtrack. The intro, amazing.
Yes. Show the World.
Main menu, amazing.
Yeah, the select screen music is so good. Or main menu screen music, whatever.
Is it Monte Carlo?
Monte Carlo is.
I might have gotten all these names wrong and just been saying it's Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is the one where it starts. So it was like,
yeah, Monte Carlo is my shit. I love that one.
Actually, hold on. This does kind of go though. It does go. Okay.
Yeah. See the problem.
It's all good, bro. I just skipped you.
No, wait.
Of like, oh, this is good.
I think Boombox and the time Tea Time or something. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, Carmine was my favorite one. I like the groove on Carmine.
Yeah, Carmine is great. I like Carmine.
Boombox is good. You don't like it, bro. You was just in that rally race listening to Boombox a lot. That's all, bro. That's all.
No, which is the one? Oh, Rising, T-10, and Time Compression. Those 3 songs could not. Although Rising isn't bad, but it's just not my style. But I couldn't stand Time Compression and T-10. Those songs, I was like, I just cannot handle this right now. Because I think Time Compression is the one that's like changing. It sounds like a radio, and it's like changing every like 5 seconds.
Yeah,
and
it has like the random parts where it goes like, and like switches up. Yeah,
for a good like 30 seconds or more. I'm just like, I just can't.
Yeah, in the middle of the race. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's something, I think I had the mix wrong on mine. I think I turned the music all the way up and some of the other levels down. So there was a point where the music was really, really loud on my TV, and it sounded amazing. There's like a surround sound feature on my like CRT built in, and it sounds like surround sound, but it sounds like really, really good. It like really brings out like some of the bass and the mids, so it just sounds really full. And some of the songs are just too overbearing, and I'm like, I can't exit and you can't go to the. Like, while you're playing, you can't press start and go to settings and adjust it. You have to quit the race and just
quit racing life. Go to settings.
Yeah.
Change the whole thing.
So I just had to turn it down, most of the time. But yeah, I mean, music was obviously really good. I think that's very important for a racing game, right? You need a sweet ass soundtrack. You need it to be, bumping. You need it to be exciting. But at the same time, I do feel like this wasn't anything unique. I think a lot of Japanese racers sort of had this feel and all that. So I can't say like they did something stand out for the genre, especially for a Ridge Racer. But yeah, do you have any other things to add for music and sound?
I never really want to commentate on, this car sounds,
I was gonna follow that up right now too. After you, yeah.
I never really want to commentate on that because, like, I don't know. Like,
you don't know.
I don't know what a good car. My car sounds like crazy, but like it might be. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I felt like some of them.
It drives.
I think some of them sounded a bit too. They sounded like RC cars. Some of them. I think the like high frequencies. They just sounded too bright. A lot of them, and that's actually why I went into the menu and was turning things down, because I'm like, damn, these cars, some of them sound really, they don't sound great. Like, I don't want to listen to this.
Yeah, during the startup of the race, and it's like, yeah, it is very annoying at the startup. The start of the race, yeah. I just would not press the gas. I would just.
Wow, that averse to it. You're just like, no, I'm not touching this.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, I feel that. So I have a question for you for the end of this section.
Name 5 cars.
What? In 1999, which car? No, I'm just kidding. Why do racing games of this era, do you think? Why do racing games of this era, specifically Japanese-produced games like this, why do you think they have so much style in their visuals and in the music? Where do you think that comes from? What's your estimation? Because we're doing Boda Radio, and a lot of these mixes that you see on YouTube have a lot of soundtracks from
just racing games. Just
you and me have. I mean,
mix.
Exactly. There's so many times that our own stuff has like, there's a game called Enthusia. It's a racing game. We haven't even played, but the soundtrack is amazing. There's a game called Rage Racer that I've never touched.
Didn't even know
the
existed.
Soundtrack is crazy. Yeah, but the soundtrack is like amazing. Insane. So like, what is it? And obviously other Ridge Racer games and Gran Turismo. I haven't played all of them, but I played enough of them. And yeah, the soundtracks. It's like, wow.
That is a very interesting question, because what differentiates Japanese racing games from Western developed racing games is the fact that they don't use licensed music. A lot of the music that they make is made in-house specifically for those games.
Yeah, that is true.
Which does make them stand out a lot more. Like, I think Just Dance is a song from, I believe, Gran Turismo 5? One of those Gran Turismos, but a lot of Gran Turismo music, I can just listen to it. I just listen to Gran Turismo music. I don't even play Gran Turismo, but I just listen to all the Gran Turismo songs because they just sound so good, and they fit the theme. Like, I feel like I would be more inclined to play a Gran Turismo because of the soundtrack and just hearing the songs in the context of what they were made for. Whereas a Need for Speed, what we had, Need for Speed Underground, you had TI 24s.
Yeah.
And like Riding Rims on I think that was Most Wanted that had Riding Rims by not D4L, them franchise boys. Like, they just have a bunch of like weird shit. Like, it's all licensed songs, and at the time they were good, but I'm not listening to Elephant Man and Beanie Man and fucking MIA and all that stuff. Like, they aged themselves. That was all Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. Why did I just single them out like that? Anyway.
Yeah, it is. Those games are trying to curate a specific presentation for sure, like a more like a urban sort of vibe. So they go towards the hip hop. It's Midnight Club, it's like there's a certain like art direction in that. So it's like, okay, we need to have rap and hip hop, but then they also pick rap and hip hop that's like specifically about cars, so riding rims, 20.
They'll have techno and they'll have jungle, but it'll be like instrumental ones and stuff like that. Like I remember, I think is it Split Second or is it Blur? They have another song on there that's a license. Like it was like an electronic song that was like, I think it's called Ping Pong or Pat Punk. I forgot the name of the song, but it was just in the latest dance mix that just dropped. But I actually listened to that song before I played Blur, and then I was like, "Oh shit, it's in Blur!" Hey, you know, like one of those things like that. So I mean, I don't know. I think it just doesn't stand out as much when you play a racing game, like a Western developed racing game. You never really think about because even now when you say that, I can vividly picture the Midnight Club UI. But it's not visually striking at all. Like, it's very bland. You know what I mean? Other than the garage, when you're customizing your car and it like rotates to go to the wheel and then it pulls off the wheel to put the next wheel on. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like Japanese games, they like Choroku did that. So like that's not really like all that unique. Need for Speed had like the neon with the UI, but.
Right.
That's it.
I don't know why. I just imagine like spray cans and like every time you select something that the camera like shifts to like a whole different angle. I don't know what game. I think that might be Midnight Club Underground 2 or something. I don't know. I actually watched the whole video. YouTube is great. I watched the whole like video like Need for Speed Underground full history, franchise history or whatever, and it goes through each of them and like talks about like what made them great or why they failed and like you just love to see videos like that where it talks about an entire franchise and you get to see like, oh yeah, I didn't play that one, like I didn't play Carbon, so when you talk about it, I'm like, yeah, I remember it coming out and it being a follow-up to like Need for Speed Underground 2 and it not really catching on in the same way they wanted it to, but a lot of people liked the whole, what is it, cliff racing or whatever?
There was cliff racing, and then there was like crews that you can like summon. So like you had to like attack gangs of people, like the muscle car gang and the exotic car gang, and
then they had the crazy ass cutscenes with real people, and it was like CG,
that was the first one.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna steal your car, and then I'm gonna steal your girl.
And I would steal your bitch. Wait, so you never gave an answer. Why do you think you said what Western games lean towards like a?
I think they did it because specifically Japanese racing games in general are a dime a dozen. But when you think about like them, you have like the Tokyo Extreme Racers, you got the Initial D, you got Choroku. You got Gran Turismo or, you know what I mean? Like Auto Modelista. Like all of these games are strikingly different in the way that they actually like look as well as how they play. Like you'll have a Ridge Racer, or an Outrun, which is real arcadey, or you'll have a, you know what I mean? Like even what is that game? Metropolitan Street Racing on Dreamcast?
I've never heard of this.
Another game that was in the latest dance mix that had a lot of good music on the soundtrack. But like a lot of the games, they're very stylized. So like they're racing games, but they don't fit that simulation niche. Whereas Trackmania, like they all have weird simulation involved with them. You know what I mean? I think that was the case. Is that it's like I'm making a game. And with the game comes a full body of making this a visual, audio, gameplay, like full-bodied experience compared to a underground where it's like I don't have to worry about music. I can just focus on the cars and the models and the racing and put all my money into the engine of building an open world for you to explore or whatever like that. They can do all that because the music and the visuals, nobody cares for that. We just want a big giant open world and a million races and cars and customization.
Yeah.
Different design philosophies.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting that you point that out because Eastern and Western developers do approach the same genres very, very differently. And you see that in almost Mortal Kombat versus, Street Fighter. Like Street Fighter. Like they feel very differently. They focus on different things. I don't know. It's always fun to kind of like look at. We should have a topic like that in our status check. But let's move on to story. So did you know that this was one of the first titles that basically had racing titles that had a story mode? That in this year, Need for Speed Underground and Our Racing Evolution were the first racing games to have a proper campaign or story. I thought that was really fascinating. I didn't know that, but
I guess, well, because I was thinking about Racing Lagoon, but that's technically a RPG, and the battles is racing.
Yeah.
So okay. Because I would have been like, actually,
yeah. Racing Lagoon is more.
It's an RPG with random racing battles.
Yeah, and I mean we could limit it because that was only released in the.
That was only in Japan too. In
Japan, yeah. This is obviously why Japan has a bunch of weird shit, or weird that we would consider.
They got a Samurai Showdown JRPG, man. They was on some other shit, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that. It is interesting that there is a whole story mode with cutscenes, with plot development. I think that I really like that. It keeps you engaged throughout the entire playthrough.
Yeah, it was the one thing that I always missed from racing games when I had played them. I'm like, I kind of wish there was like a story here. I wish I could do something, engage with it on a deeper level than just like playing arcade versus a time attack. Like there was so many racing games that was like with just a bare bones offering, and so to add like an actual campaign, I thought was super cool. Let's talk about characters. What do you have to say?
Other than your main rival, there isn't much characterization of the other racers, so it's kind of
isn't it kind of crazy?
Yeah, because you see those people through like the entire story, like every single race, it's the same guys. So it's like, why not have a cutscene where like one of the guys runs up and is like, "You cut me off. I'm gonna get you next race" or something. Like, give me more characterization other than Rena. And what's the main? Is that the name of the main rival, or is that the name of the main character?
No, Rena is the main character, and Gina is
the
rival.
Yeah, Gina's the only one that gets characterization, but like what was the plot with the little guy that was like, "Bro, can I beat Stefan?" Like, what was the point of that? We don't even really see Stefan like that.
No, we don't see Stefan. We don't see Steve Blum. We don't see his character very much. It's so strange. I found all the characters in the story incredibly disappointing. Very just undercooked. And one of the main things I found even more disappointing was how much it sells itself on this rivalry between Rena and Gina, and how that's not made clear or developed until maybe like this feels like a prequel to their would-be rivalry.
Yeah,
like it feels like
Racing 2.
Yeah, like this just feels because like what the last 2 chapters focus on sort
just
of them like
racing, yeah.
But they barely have any meaningful exchanges. I don't know. It's just so weird. I was like, what? We're just meeting here and the game's almost done.
There is like, and that's why I'm a little confuzzled, because in the extra mode, like there are rival battles against each of the like 101 races against each of the people that you can race against. But once again, I don't know them. I don't care for them other than the radio banter that I hear, which could be any generic person. So it doesn't really matter. Like, of course, I'm going to put a name to it and be like, oh, Santiago, that's a guy. Okay, I'm going to keep cutting him off or whatever like that. He sucks at racing. But
Right.
If it wasn't for my own player immersion that I do, I can see somebody else playing this game and being like, okay, anyway, or not even remembering the other people that you were racing against, or in the cutscenes, the people like what was up with the Shadow Organization?
I what are they called?
The
GIV, I think?
GSG?
GVI.
GBI.
I don't.
Yeah, like
I'm like, what? Why?
what the fuck was the point of that? I don't know. Maybe it's some rich racer lore that we just aren't hip on or something.
Well,
like
I read the synopsis, and basically GVI I think is in the shared universe with Ridge Racer lore, but the main point is that essentially they're in it because the first couple of races you do are supposed to be like under their tutelage. Like you get all these fancy cars and all this shit, and you don't as a player you don't really feel that, you know. I'm like, these are fancy cars, I guess. All right,
yeah.
And then like there's that race where you can't come in first. That's like a pivotal point because that's when apparently, like I'm reading when reading the synopsis, that's where Rena and Stefan are kind of like, oh yeah, we don't want to race for like a big corporate, you know, sponsor, you know, because they kind of manufacture these races and pull the strings, and then they go on their own, but
they continue doing the same shit. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
like, it made
like,
me think, like,
guess.
what if I just won first place? Like, I feel like winning first place, like, or if they were like, or like if like by the second lap of you being in first, like second place, like Stefan was like, you know what, forget this, go for the gun it all or something like that. During the race.
Something like mid race, like yeah. Although I guess it'd be hard to control, like, you know, where the player is for that to trigger, but it was just weird. It was a really weird like thing. The shadowy organization,
that falls into exactly like right into writing, which is, I want to point out, is comically bad. Like I think that the writing it does have these moments where you hear certain vocal inflections and line deliveries, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I get what you wrote on paper and it makes sense, but like having an actor act that out, no, that wasn't the line. Or like you could have expanded on that or something like that. And like we were saying, like this weird all shadow organization and the rivalry, everything feels rushed. Like there isn't a lot of time, especially because I think they know that it was only 14 tracks, so I can't stretch this game out any more than I've already stretched it out. So I think that maybe they were like, we can't really add as much cutscenes or anything. Like wouldn't it have been a more fun race if I raced the ambulance, if that was the first race and I controlled that and I went through and had to get to the hospital in time? Like that would have been more interesting, especially having to play with the ambulance. You could have had that as an unlockable secret, like, oh, now you can race with the ambulance in extra mode or whatever like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when you first start... Like, when you first start the game, Rena is an ambulance driver, and, you know, she has to get to a patient, and, you know, she's flying. She's fucking driving like crazy. I got the sense that it was going to be a more exciting story, like, based on maybe her not being accepted, you know, because, like, you just fucking drove, ambulances. What are you doing here, you know? And I think Gina mentions that, like, once. But, like, I thought it was going to be more, like... I don't know, Rena is such a blank slate that it could have been like a custom character or anybody. I don't even know why give her the backstory because she barely says anything, barely has anything to respond to. I don't know. It's just like so weird to me that like they're even... It really feels like this was like a last minute addition. Like they had all these races and they needed to put all 14 tracks, you know, and put them into a story, and someone was like, okay, well, here. And then they made these CG cutscenes that I feel like don't advance anything. Like every CG cutscene feels like inconsequential to things. I feel like you get more from the after race texts, you know, like at the bottom.
Yeah, the before and after preambles.
Yeah. Than what you get in like these, I mean, at the time, beautifully, you know, rendered CG cutscenes. It was really disappointing to me. I was really looking forward to like more banter, more characterization of Rena and Gina, learning more about Stefan. I was like, he sounds cool. Like, what happened to him? You know?
Yeah, I would have loved to learn about my pit crew during battles. If they was like, "Oh, you got to be careful. You can't go too fast during this race." Like, if they did more experimental things, like, "Oh, you can't go too fast during this race because you'll pop your tire. We're too poor because we just made this new racing group or whatever like that. This is my pit crew," or if each chapter focused on a different rival racer that you are seeing all the time and you beating them and them getting respect for you or something of the sorts like that. I think that would have helped out with fleshing out this world more, because at the end of it all, it feels kind of inconsequential when you play it all, because especially once you play extra mode, when it's just like, oh, I could have just clicked whatever race I wanted to play and buy whatever car I wanted to buy and do that. That seems like a way more interesting system than the story mode races, because they don't really do anything other than be like a glorified 4-hour long tutorial.
Damn. That's scathing.
I mean, it's the weakest part of the game. Genuinely,
it is.
Honestly, it is.
I think that the game is still doing something that had never been done before, and so maybe they didn't have the resources. They didn't know how to commit, maybe how to implement. I mean, it was unprecedented. Like, no one had done what they were trying to do before. They were trying to, like, really, by putting a story mode in a racing game, you're immediately like getting a wider cast of players. Like, you're casting a wider net. You're going to get players that have never played racing games. You're going to get people more interested because now there's a story, and that automatically, will compel people to play. And so that's like, they fumbled that,
Yeah.
It's like, you have people here now that have never really played a racing sim arcade blend or whatever. And
because when I
you
think
fumbled
about,
it with this weak ass story.
Because Need for Speed Underground, wasn't it the sidekick? It would like flip up the sidekick and be like, "Hey man, you got a text from John. You need to meet you at the race and do this shit." Like, wasn't that
I think that might have been the second one.
Well, that second one
that had the sidekick, but yeah.
Yeah, like, even then, like, having a messenger, having a person message you and be like, "Hey, you've been accepted into the racing league," or "I saw you racing out there, now come race me." Like, it makes the world feel a little bit more alive than what we have. And it could be a detriment because of it being level based instead of having an open world or anything to drive around. You're just race. So maybe that's the case. But I mean,
you know what would be cool? Here's what I was imagining when we were playing it. I was imagining, like, okay, you got your races, right? But then you get to walk around the pit area with Rena maybe before a race. You can talk to Stefan. You can talk to the other guy. And they have some shit to say. And then you get in your car. And I'm like, that would have been a little bit more immersive, But then you have to design the character animation. You have to design, like, that little world, that little hub, I guess, where you, like, walk in the pit.
Yeah.
But maybe we'd be, like, complaining about that and how it's not enough, Yeah,
but, and then we'll be like, "What can you even do in there? They just got this big ass jukebox. You could have just cut it out."
It's really a missed opportunity. Yeah, we're fucking annoying, honestly. This is not it. It's just complaining about what wasn't there. It was a cool idea, and I think that it being the first of its kind of blazing the trail, and releasing alongside with something like Need for Speed Underground that also had a story, was kind of cool. And they were kind of like just taking some swings. And unfortunately, I think they missed. And even at the time, I was reading that a lot of people felt like, do you think this is more arcadey or like a race sim?
I think this is more simulation based, because I actually had to brake hard as shit to get across a couple of these turns. So I'd actually drive like a real car for a moment. So
apparently they were trying to blend the two. I was reading that people thought it wasn't a good sim racer or a good arcade racer because they couldn't choose on which side to lean. And so a lot of actual racing fans didn't like it for that reason. So for me, I thought it was way more like sim heavy, and apparently it wasn't. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I feel like a pussy, kind of. I'm like, shit, all right. But I just think there wasn't enough substance with the story. And yeah, I think Well, what are your thoughts on the setting?
I didn't even realize there was a setting, to be honest.
The setting is the world, really. You're going from Monaco to like Tokyo, like you're going.
You're just doing races in random cities. I mean, okay, I can't even see the city. Like, oh, this one's got a Ferris wheel, but.
Did you have a favorite track?
My favorite track was a city track. That one where you had the turn. It was a turn that specifically like you go through. It's like a turn where you go like over. It's not like a straight turn where it's like a one where you go over a little bit and then you go straight, and then there's like a super sharp like right turn right after that, and then there's
I think that might be Yokohama.
Yeah, I think it's Yokohama because it has the split at like one section where you can go straight or go left. And the straight path
Yokohama
leads out a little bit. I would think that's probably my favorite track, or the drag race because that was at night.
Yeah, drag race is fucking.
That shit was crazy.
We'll talk about that. I think my favorite track was probably, from a visual standpoint, it was probably the Monte Carlo track. But that shit was hard as fuck.
Yes,
that track was like
insane.
It's a very tricky track. But I also like the city one as well that you're talking about. Let's move on to gameplay, which we've broken down into mechanics, progression, gameplay loop. I think design. I put design in there as gameplay loop because that's sort of like the design. But since we were just talking about drag racing. That shit is ass. Drag racing in any racing game is fucking ass. Like, you just can't make drag racing a compelling game mode in any way. I've played it in 2024 in new games. I've played it now in older games. I'm just like, drag racing is not a fun game, like gameplay mode.
You know what it is? Because in the actual car, when you drag race, you can feel the torque of like, okay, I need to change gear now. Right. I need to go. But when you're playing a game and you're just holding R2 and then pressing X, I'm just pressing up on the D-pad whenever I need to change gears. Yeah, that shit is boring as hell.
Yes. It's like, this is just not compelling at all.
That was actually my favorite races in Underground. Speaking of Underground, I used to play, when I first got my collection, me and Devin would play Need for Speed Underground. We would just do drag races for like hours. He'd just sit there and just be like, let it rip. I'll beat you this time.
It's I could see that being fun. Like if me and Elise played, it's very simple. Not a lot of turns. You just have to worry about a couple of things,
Just be better at changing gears. But yeah, it is boring. Same with rally racing. I don't want to say rally racing is boring. Rally racing is something that's just not for me. Like I got immediately
Okay.
Once the whole like handling changed, I immediately was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not a rally person." But you know what it is? I did download Dirt Rally.
Yeah. Which one?
I tried to play that one, and I was like, "This shit is what the fuck?" I couldn't even like turn. I couldn't do anything in that game. So I was like, "Bro, I don't know what to do with rally racing." So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Is it drifting? Are you supposed to drift?
Yes, there's a lot of drifting. There's a lot of using the handbrake, that's for sure, to keep your momentum around corners. Because like rally racing, typically you're on dirt, and so if you brake on dirt, like normal brake, you'll slide, and that shit. I mean, just depending on your car, you can lose control, lose a lot of speed, and stuff. But I like rally racing, but yeah, one of the maps were really fucking hard, and you can only choose one car. I was like, fuck, and and that's sort of where the interesting mechanic of the sort of on the fly vehicle adjustments sort of came into play. Where I was like, well, what can I fucking do here?
Yeah,
because while you're playing the game, you can quickly just press up on the D-pad and then change like the firmness or braking bias and just other random things, and good luck figuring out what feels like what mid-race.
The only ones I knew was like from looking at it beforehand was the front and the rear shock absorption or whatever the fuck.
Okay. Yeah.
The only one I knew. I was like, okay, firmer means I can turn corners easier. Harder means that it's looser. So I was like, okay, bet. Just we got to change it up a little bit, or I would restart and be like, okay, then we got to just change this a little bit real quick, and then we should be ready to roll. I like that idea, but also tuning in general, it's very scary. It's very daunting when you first look at it, and you're like, oh my god, I don't know what do I change my ABS to? What do I change my TCS? What do I do? All these different settings. Eventually you do learn it. Like I did start to learn, like, okay, for a rally race I need to tune the car this particular way, and for a circuit race I need to tune it this particular way. So I think
you got a little bit of the feel about it.
Yeah, I got a little bit of the juice a little bit towards the,
because what it ends up being, really, and I'm looking at the little booklet here, what it ends up being is like you kind of have to know how the car is handling in order to make the right corrections. And you have to know what each setting does to change, that handling. And that's hard to know if you can't make those connections. Like, there's a front rear stabilizer or front rear LSD, and you're just like, do I need that? Is that going to ruin my shit? Like,
why is my front wheels on drugs?
Yeah, yeah, you don't know. Like, okay, it's firmer, and then it's like, oh, that gives you, better turning, but it also, if you go out of control, it's less, like, you will have less control, and it's just like,
what is a proper setting? Yeah, like, what does this mean in the context of me finishing this race? Yeah,
it'd be cool if it, like, somehow, and maybe there's a game like this, or maybe it doesn't even work like this at all, but if it sort of like watch how I play, and then suggest the settings to me based on like how I'm driving, my driving style, because I don't know what I need. I don't know if I need my
the call-outs are saying like, we need to upgrade those, we need to tighten up your LSD real fast, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That would be so exactly. That'd be so slick.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think a lot of my issues when it comes with this game, I hate sounding negative, man, because I've been thinking about this in retrospect, but like I think I'm not a realistic physics guy. I'm not a simulator. I can't be a simulator.
That's like, do you mean just with racing or just in general? What do you mean?
With racing in particular.
Oh, okay.
Is it wild to say that it was boring?
For somebody that doesn't play racing games and is not into cars or racing, no, that's not wild at all to say. That makes sense. I mean, you really have to, like, okay, I don't like a game like Spin Tire's Mud Runner. That's a game that I enjoy, but because I sort of like messing with the settings and like trekking through the mud and trying to find the best route and doing, like, that's something that I just like to do. Like the sounds of the vehicle, the solitude almost.
But a Mud Runner is kind of, because I'm kind of the same way when I play Wreckfest sometimes. Like, I think the idea of like either like intense vehicle destruction that actually affects the way that you drive, or like you said, mud, and trying to figure out how to get out of the mud. I think it's interesting enough to keep me going. But this game gets solved very quickly. And once you solve it, especially because you're doing the same races over and over again throughout the story, you kind of are like, okay, I get it. Like, on this one turn right here, instead of going through the turn and then the turn, I'm gonna just go through the dirt and skip like 2 laps or something like that. Like, there's certain areas in certain races you just kind of you learn, no matter what difference the car is or what kind of race, or if it's reverse or anything like that, it's you know it all. And because there's so few tracks and so few, like, because there's so little content really in terms of this game, it's so easy to, once you've seen it all, to be like, I'm disillusioned. There's nothing keeping me going from here on out.
Yeah. And it's real. I mean, racing games sort of die on their ability to engage you with like time attack and can you beat the best lap on this track? Like, that's really all there is to racing. GT has like licenses, so you can work towards getting a specific license to use specific cars, and there's a better sense of progression. But yeah, this game doesn't really have that. So it's just like, do you love the way the game feels? If not, then you're kind of fucked, because that's all there is here for, for playing it. I was actually watching I think I was reading a review. I think it was on Moby Games, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, just tune every vehicle down, with these specific settings, and it feels way better to play." And I was like, maybe I should have used the guide to play this, because clearly I wasn't playing it in that way. And to just go back to your point about it feeling boring, like, yeah, it's just something that we're not used to playing. This is the second racing game, and it's the most realistic racing game we've ever played.
Yeah.
And even then, like, out of all the realistic racing games out there, it's still pretty, cartoony and over the top because of its story mode, which is why I didn't pick something like fucking, Enthusia, I guess. I wouldn't just pick that, because that is a racing sim, and that's just not our forte. I don't even know how many racing fans will.
Much to say, because looking at the list, the only games that we really like, racing games that we have on the list, is Auto Modelista, and that's only because of its art style. And
Split Second is on there, right? Because if it's not,
it's about to be on bitch.
There. Yeah, Split Second is definitely a good one. And maybe even Blur. I never played Blur, but I remember it.
Blur can be on there. Blur. I'm trying to think of what other. Yeah, that's it. Top Gear Daredevil. That's the only other racing game.
Oh yeah, didn't we start and we were just like, we had the Switch for some reason or something?
No, we were about to. I think we were about to do it, and then we did Stolen it off for something else. And then we didn't do that one. So.
We didn't do. Oh, that's good.
Oh
that's
man,
good. The
first review I see, somebody says, "This is it, the worst game I've ever played." Oh no.
For what?
For Top Gear Daredevil. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
we'll see. We will see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, that's one of the mechanics of the game. Like, one of the main highlights is that on-the-fly vehicle adjustment, which you don't really see in other games, other racing games like it. Another one is the sort of psychological pressure system, which is essentially, when you're close behind somebody, you're putting pressure on them, and there's a little meter that kind of raises as you're basically on their ass, and the AI is more likely to make a mistake if that meter goes all the way to red. That's kind of cool, because it reminds you that there's another person in that car, so it adds like a human element to the racing. Because a lot of the times with these racing games, you don't see the drivers, you don't see anybody,
you don't hear them.
It's just cars. You don't.
They rubber band, they do all this stupid shit. But I mean, I like that. I really did like that, because you'll hear them in the radio being like, "She's on my ass."
Yeah. How the fuck did she get so much speed?
Yeah.
They're just like freaking out.
I can't. She's losing me. I can't get her.
Yeah. It's like they just say some shit. I'm like, damn. Like, all right,
my fault, bro.
Like,
yeah, especially when you see them like spin out randomly, or like during the turn, and they'd be like, "Oh fuck, no!" And you're like, "Oh,
I did that. That was like probably like one of my second favorite parts of the game is basically when you like they're making the mistake and they're just like, and then you just like see them go off into the grass.
Yeah,
just
or
like,
if you bump into them, you're like, "Oh, you want to play dirty, bitch?" You're like, "Damn, why did you have it, bro?"
Yeah. Oh, they're intense. They're which I loved. It added character, and then there's like an Asian one, there's like a German guy, an Italian dude, a more American guy, so they all kind of had their own little little things to say. 76 is on my ass. It sounded very like Star Wars Rogue Squadron, like them on the like it's just
I know the exact sound you're talking about when you hear a clone trooper die in Battlefront.
Yeah.
You're like, ah!
I was waiting for the Wilhelm screen to fucking happen at some point, because it just felt so like, I don't know. It was good. It was very enjoyable, and thinking back, I think I enjoyed it more when I remember it, in hindsight, than when I was actually playing it. But at some point, I remember thinking to myself, like, it's kind of cool, like that and that's why rally races didn't really click with you, was because it's so lonely. But when you're actually racing with other people and they're fucking engaging with you and saying shit, it's definitely. Yes. And then that's when Stefan actually talks the most too, because he's not really talking that much. Your co-pilot is, talking.
Yeah,
on the
during
rallies.
rally races, and it's very weak. This is probably a real thing during rally races, but it's like short, long, short.
Oh yeah,
left,
that's how they.
medium
That's how
left.
it is.
That's
how it is.
That's weird, bro. Like,
It's so wild to me. I'm like, how did they? I don't.
Know?
Yeah, like it's so weird to me. I was actually thinking, I'm like, maybe I should watch a video on like rally racing because it's kind of cool. Like, have you seen? First off, some of those rally cars look so cool to me.
Yes.
But it is interesting. They have somebody that's like if you and me got in it, and then like I'm driving, you're like basically telling me where the track
Sharp
is,
right.
how many meters. Yeah, and I'm like, fuck, what does that mean? I'm just like doing my best.
I think the cars of rally racing look the cool. I need to watch me one of
That's what I'm
these
saying.
like best of highlights or whatever. One of these
Yeah,
joints.
see a like deep dive YouTube video on like how do rally races work? Like what the fuck do you do? What do you need? Why? Like
How to drive
How
a
do you get
rally
started?
race.
Yeah, how to get started in rally racing? Go to your local rally racing club or some shit. So let's see. Chapter 11's race was extremely tough for no reason at all. I think that's the one with. I think that's the rally race, of course, and it's
I
the
think that's
one
the
where
one with the bridge, right? And you can like fall off.
okay, there's that one. That one's difficult, but there's the other one. There's the other difficult one where it's like there's two cars, right, and you guys are both going.
Oh yeah, and there's two
Yeah.
different like tracks, but you're both racing
Yes.
each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, that one
You
was
can't-
difficult as fuck too.
I had to drop that down to easy, and because it was just so fucking. There's so many times I just spun out, and I'm like, I'm losing seconds here, and the car's just passing me, and I'm like, great.
Upon
have to
replay,
restart this bitch.
I definitely turned all the rally races on easy brake assist on because I was in.
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. They were
So
too
it's-
difficult for me.
So difficult. And we obviously don't have all day to be fucking trying to master these tracks. I didn't care to. The gameplay wasn't that great to me where I'm like, no, I want to get this. I'm like, fuck it.
Yeah,
dropping this
and
down.
I tried
There's
to learn
no way.
like how to drift, and I never got it right. Like I don't know if it was like something I needed to fine tune with the thingy bob, or maybe I'm just so used to like cartoonish drifting,
Cartoon drifting.
and like Need for Speed and Burnout and all that stuff. So I was just trying to like learn because I was like obviously like you can drift because like in the opening
Yes.
scene there's the rally race where there's that one turn and he drifts the
Yeah.
entire turn, and I'm like I want to learn to do that. But I
Yeah.
never was able to do that. And every time I rally race, I would just slowly around the turn instead of like doing
You
what
entered
you're
the
supposed
turn
to
at the optimum speed. Yeah.
do type shit. And I don't know, bro. I don't know, bro. And this
once
bear,
you go on.
this bears a bigger question. And this is what I was saying when it comes to like genres that you're not typically fond of. Is like,
Yeah.
how does one? Because for me, what I was thinking was, I pick up random games all the time. What this game
Yeah.
feels no different. I mean, it does feel different, but like to the layman that was just putting in random games, you know what I'm saying? This would feel
In
no
2003.
different than like Ford Racing or,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like
wow.
one of those generic, random budget
Licensed,
$2
like
racing
Yeah.
games. Other than the budget of it's more than 4 cars and 2 races, you know what I mean? Like
right.
who if you were to pick this up, like how would you know if this was like a real budget title? Especially like you said, you've always seen it on the bargain bin. Compared to other racing games, when I see the stylish Need for Speed Carbon cover over there, compared to our racing with just hot Asian chick in a car, like I don't know what that entails. I don't know how the game's gonna play.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's a good question. In terms like in the context of like, what is the market? What is the audience? You know, how is this game differentiating itself? You know, how's it catching people's attention? What are people supposed to expect, from it? And I think that's one of the reasons it failed, is because it didn't do anything in any excellent way. That's why it sort of, and there's a lot of racers that fail because they're just like, oh, here's Corvette racing, here's Ford racing, here's ATV racing. It's just like, we're getting to a point where now this market is saturated with games, and then there's the few that really stand above, like your Need for Speeds, your
Burnouts, your
Gran Turismos, Burnouts, yeah, that are just, or Wreckfest, when was that introduced? That was in PS2 era, was it? I don't know.
But I mean, you have Forza, you have Project Gotham Racing.
Forza,
like
right.
There's like a specific niche of like 8 big like racing type. Need for Speed, Ridge Racer, Project Gotham Racing, Forza, Gran Turismo, Mario Kart.
Well, I think kart racers generally aren't put together with.
It's
those,
a racing game, but it's not one of them
true,
racing games.
True.
Yeah, that's it. That's it when it comes to series.
Smuggler's Run 1 and 2.
Fucking
Smuggler's Run was awesome, man.
Shout out Smuggler's Run for the fake hide and seek mode. Here's what we used to do.
Yeah,
there's like a mode where you can like run around on like one of the maps, and we would play hide and seek. We would all just run around the map, and like one person would be it, and you'd have to hit the other person's car, and then you would be it, and you had to chase the other people out there. We used to do that shit all the time. That was the most fun I had with Smuggler's Run. I don't even know what the actual gameplay is like. I don't know. If I play Smuggler's Run again, I'm gonna just play hide and seek. I'm not gonna play the actual game.
I think the game was basically just like going to pick up drop shipments and then going to deliver it or some shit like that. I remember playing it and being like, this is so cool, but bare bones.
Remember when GTA was a racing game?
What the fuck are you talking about? What? It was a racing game?
Yeah, the first two.
Oh, like the top-down,
yeah,
bird's eye view. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Driver's another one of those pillars.
Yeah.
Did I say Burnout? And there you go. That's it.
I don't know.
Well,
it's sort of like with fighting games, right? You have like your top-tier fighting games.
Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, whether you want to say that they're more polished or more popular, and then you have all the rest, which is there's a ton of fighting games. Anime fighters, arena fighters. You just got, your pile of other, fighting games.
Yeah, nobody.
And it's hard to know, like,
talking about Bloody Roar or Tatsunoko versus Capcom. But there's love for them, kind of like Ridge Racer or R Racing. There's going to be love for this game, but
yeah,
to the average consumer, they're not like, oh, this is groundbreaking. But it's like, we're not a car racing enthusiast to be able to tell the difference. It's kind of like when people play sports games every year, and they're like, I can tell the exact difference on how the shot meter works. I know exactly what happened to change the pass accuracy on this. The defense move, the D line moves different on this one. Or FIFA, they kick the ball different. Like there's people that can do that, and I'm not one of those people. The ball goes in the hoop.
Right.
That's all that matters to me.
There's people that are locked into that stuff. I think we use our energy more broadly to different types of games, I would say. But the people that lock into those games lock in. Like that's their shit. But let's talk about, because I see that you have something about the physics. The physics of the physics of this game is something that was brought up in the press releases and reviews, and how wonky and bad they were. And I noticed that too when I was playing before I had read that basically if you're hitting a wall, your car acts so weird.
Yes.
I'm just like, what? It's like, what is this reaction to me hitting a wall, or even hitting some cars? Like, there's just like a strange sort of like bugginess to it that just doesn't feel right. It's
like a lot of the times that I restarted was because somebody hit me, or I clipped the wall at the wrong angle, and it like my car just goes all over the place. Like, those were the frustrating parts for the game for me.
Yes. And in a racing game, you want that stuff to not feel so... You want that feedback to be just right so that, it's not frustrating and it feels, I guess, realistic in this sense. But, like, when you're sideswiping a car, it just never felt right. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, it felt ugly, as we like to say on the show.
This shit felt ugly, bro.
That shit was so ugly.
No, I did liken it to, like, you can see the Ridge Racer trying to break out of the physics. And it makes me theorize that
Yes, that's
was
funny. It's
this
a good way to put
always
it.
developed as a realistic Ridge Racer? Or was this a Ridge Racer game and then they were like, let's dip into
to
this
make it.
Gran Turismo bag? Or because Rage Racer is a spin-off of Ridge Racer that's more combat focused. Like you can like hit the
Interesting.
shit out of people and stuff like that. But it's still Ridge Racer. You know what I mean?
Right. You know what's crazy is that the R, Ridge Racer, right? Rage Racer. The R in R Racing doesn't fucking stand for anything. Isn't that kind of wild?
You would think it would stand for Ridge.
Yeah, and they were like, no, we just want people to kind of get like a sense that it like has a loose association with Ridge Racer, and what you just said was basically what they want people to assume, but it actually doesn't stand for Ridge, which I'm like, what? What is it there for? Race, and then also for some reason in the West, Evolution was added to the title, so we got.
I get it though because
R
Racing Evolution
sounds cooler.
Yeah. Like just being like, hey, bro, I'm playing R Racing. Like they'd be like, the fuck, trade that shit back into the McDonald's bag that you got it from. Like,
what I think it's in the manual that the game refers to itself as R. It's like, oh, when racing in R, you will be playing as, and I'm just like, what is that a typo that they didn't put the full name, or do they want us to call this game R? Because there is a giant R as the.
I mean,
like it's a trip, isn't it?
Is
like
it is an R. So they might just want it to be called R, and they figured
like
R
that's
wasn't,
the name R.
They thought that wasn't like marketable enough, so they was like, all right, put a Racing Evolution. So people know it's a racing game.
Yeah.
Is there any one letter like games?
East almost.
Almost.
East. Yeah, almost.
Only one I could think of is N. What was that game? N plus. The little stick figure game.
Yeah. That's right.
That's it. Pool. That's the only one I can think of.
But doesn't N stand for nigga? Nigga plus.
He is black.
That's crazy. Well, I think that's kind of all I have to say for the gameplay because we're not racing guys.
We're not racing dudes.
We can't really say, I mean, I definitely play a lot of racing games, but I never get granular enough to be able to speak on like the differences. So there's that, Pressure system was cool. Loved hearing Stefan and the other racers. That was a nice touch. Drag races suck. Bad physics. And I was actually at a question for you, a final question, which was basically, which you already answered. Do you like driving in general, in real life? Like if I went out there and I was like, yo, let's
just
drive.
Be like,
yeah, I'll drive. Well, that too, but would you be like, no, I'll drive? Like, are you the driver, or you'd be like, nah, you could drive? Like, what?
Surprisingly,
do you like driving?
I'm not usually the driver. I'm usually in the passenger seat. I usually just be like, yeah, just drive. It's cool. Because I like driving. I like driving long distances. Like if we're driving a long distance, I got you. I'll knock it out.
Got you. Okay,
I'll do that.
Okay.
But like, just driving around the city, it's because I'm too impatient, bro. I be getting angry at people, bro. I'm a road rage.
You're a rage racer.
I'm a rage racer.
You're a rage racer. Is what you
like in my head, I'd be really cool in being a defensive driver, but in my head, I really be like, what if I just hit the shit out you right now?
That is crazy.
I'd be ready
That
to
is
kill
what.
people
Yeah.
on the road. I'd be like, get the fuck out the way,
So you have road rage.
cutting people off and shit. So I don't like to drive because I just rather chill the fuck out. So
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see, I'm very patient behind the wheel, and I like being behind the wheel. I was telling Elise a couple of weeks ago that I think in another life I'd probably really like racing or driving. I'd be like a truck driver or some sort of driver, because I really do enjoy it to some weird degree, and I'm pretty good at it too. Like just naturally, for some reason, people always compliment me on parking. But like I remember one time my uncle asked me to drive his Suburban, and he had like a giant boat attached to it, and I had never driven anything like that. He wanted me to back that bitch up into the water, and he was like, have you done this before? I was like, no. And he's like,
oh, you did good.
It's a good, yeah. But I've always just been like understood like the mechanics of driving, and I've always really enjoyed them. I like driving things, but so that's good. That's why we fit together well, because I'm driving us around, I guess, and you're just gonna be in the passengers. Exactly, yeah.
I'm the aux, man.
It would be different if we both didn't like to drive. And it's like, well, I guess we're not going anywhere. I guess we're getting an Uber or something half the time.
You know what it is? I drove so much from the time that I got my license until like I started working like remote. That like, especially like where I used to live, like for the last 4 years of fucking Boulder, like, mind you, it took 20 minutes to get to the grocery store where I lived. Like the closest grocery gas station is like 15, 20 minutes away from me. So if I wanted to do anything, like I lived in the back of the back of the back road, bro. Like you had to go on a back road, to go down a back road, to go down a back road, to go to the end of the neighborhood of a back road to get to my house.
God damn.
So like for me, driving became like a chore, especially because of work, because of my job. Before I had to travel a lot, so I'd be going from the back road to back road, back road to back road, all the way to like Baltimore or like Annapolis or like just crazy ass. Like for me, it would become like from where I was, like on average in the DMV area, it's only about a 45 minute drive to get to DC, no matter where you are. For me to get to DC, it was a 2-hour drive.
Damn.
To get to Baltimore, 2-hour drive. To get to Virginia, 2-hour drive. So imagine you got to do that for work all the time. And then, so they're taking like, yeah, you need to drive all the way to fucking DC today. And then go home.
Yeah.
I got to wake up at 4 a.m. to get ready for... No. That's why I hate driving.
No, I get that, because my car is shit, and
Same.
Driving it is like a fucking ball of like, it's like a ticking time bomb where I'm like, what could possibly go wrong right now with this car? Like, is the fucking timing belt gonna go out? Am I gonna get stranded? So it's stressful in that way. But I think the driving generally, right? I do enjoy it.
That's why I got rid of that truck. It was because of that same situation, bro. It was too much. Like, I remember that shit almost broke down on the side of the road, bro. And I was like, bro, please just get me home, bro. Please.
You're just praying, please, that's it. I'll never drive you again, please. Yeah, I feel that. Now, let me follow up this question that I asked you about driving. And I already know the answer, but I wrote it, so I want to ask. Does this and Chorokyu make you want to play other racing games? Does it make you interested in expanding your racing game experiences?
It's got to be as unique as Chorokyu in order for... I feel like Chorokyu has spoiled me. Because I'm not going to lie to you, bro. I be going back to Chorokyu. Like, out of all the games that we've played on this thing, I've played State of Emergency and Chorokyu the most. I've replayed those. Just, popping in State of Emergency, do a quick little 5-minute timer run, or playing Chorokyu and just doing a quick race here or there or something like that. Those are the two games that I've gone back to the most in terms of back of the rack games. And I think I just like the world and the style of Chorokyu a lot. Like that.
Yes.
I just
yes.
like, because it's very Harvest Moonian, and and it's like approach. So it's like, oh, I'm only getting better. Like I'm shit now, but trust me, I'm getting better, and then I can keep doing these races. Like have you like if you go back and replay Chorokyu, use the card that you have now on your save, and go back and do one of the very first races, and you'll be like, what the fuck? This is amazing. I'm shitting on these people. Like it's one of those games. I think for me,
Maybe I should go back and play that shit. Fuck it. I always think about it.
go back, just
Playing
plug it in real quick on your board one day, grab a beer and just vibe, man. I think for me when it comes.
What about
to
LA
racing games-
Rush? Have you heard of LA Rush?
Have you heard of?
Would you consider Crazy Taxi a racing game?
What's? But see, okay, if you classify Crazy Taxi as a racing game, then you have to classify Smashing Drive as a racing game.
Didn't you return a game called Tokyo
Extreme Racer, I think.
Tokyo Missions X or something like that? It's like a cheap ass like bargain bin game.
Or was it Yakuza Racing, bro?
Yeah, Yakuza like Tokyo Missions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shit was ass. See, that's my thing, bro. Is that like there's so many racing games that are so low budget that like, especially around like the 6th generation, that like it's muddled like what could really be good. Like Juiced, I'll play Juiced. Juiced.
Look, I'm just saying, you know, like I was curious if like you wanted to get more into it. Maybe as we go, season 10, we'll play like Mud Runners, you know, because it'll be fucking like 20 years old at that point, you know. But
I'm trying to remember which one it is that has the dating sim attached to it, bro. I can't fucking remember, bro. I think it's Juiced. I think Juiced is the one that has the dating sim attached to it.
by the way, we forgot to mention this, but Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec, which came out in 2001, was considered the gold standard for realistic racing simulators, with all of its like visuals and its customization. And then the same goes for Project Gotham Racing 2. Now for arcade racers, Burnout 2 Point of Impact 2002, which came out 2002, set a high bar for the crash focused gameplay, which was further enhanced in 2004 by Burnout 3 Takedown. And then Need for Speed Underground, which came out the same year as our game, revolutionized Need for Speed by introducing street racing, car customization, and a gritty urban aesthetic. And then there's specialized racers like Colin McKay Rally 3 and MotoGP, as well as Tokyo Extreme Racer. Yeah. So
You know what I need to add to the list? You know what we
it's
need
kind
to
of
play?
interesting. What?
Sonic Rivals.
Is that the racing game?
That's the PSP racing game.
Oh, PSP. No. There's Sonic Riders, right? Isn't there Sonic Riders?
There's Riders, and then there's also
Riders was
Sonic R.
wild.
There's
Oh,
like 3
okay.
different ones. Yeah, Sonic Rivals is a 2D racing game, and then
Oh, okay.
I think, Riders is a 2D racing game. Rivals is a 2D racing game. Then Sonic Riders is the one with the hoverboards, and then Sonic R is them racing on foot.
Sonic Riders was one of the first games I ever bought.
That's crazy.
As a bit of nostalgia, yeah. And you
I 100% in
I-
that game just to get Ooh
I
La
thought
La in Supersonic.
You know what else is a cool game? Kirby Air Ride. That's a good racer.
That is a great race.
Kirby Air Ride is fucking incredible. You remember that fucking bus that it was like a boxy.
Yeah,
it was
you
like
have
a-
to go like.
Yeah. that was a very, very cool game.
What about Rave Racer? Is Rave Racer a racing game?
Wave Racer?
What about snowboarding games? Are those racing games?
Yes, anything that you're racing, yeah. But it doesn't come like it's technically not like
It's not a
car racing.
Car racing, There you go.
Yeah. So then you judge it by different metrics because it's like, well, you're on a snowboard.
Yeah, it's not the same as a Tony Hawk Downhill Jam.
That's a boater, but I will. Let's not play it ever. All right. Well, what else we got to say?
Man, y'all need to play R Racing Evolution just for the just for the soundtrack.
Would you recommend it just for the soundtrack? That doesn't even make sense. You can just listen.
You can just YouTube it. You can just
listen
to Boater Radio. Fucking
yeah, exactly. Just go to Boater Radio and listen to the soundtrack. Just upload it there. All legal and shit.
I think it's cool. For a Ridge Racer game, I do think that it stands out a lot comparatively. Like, if there was like a list of Ridge Racer games that you should own, I think this is one of those Ridge Racer games that should, like, Type 4, of course, duh, and this game are kind of hand in hand. Like, you should have both of them. It's kind of like having Need for Speed Underground and not having Carbon. It's like having Need for Speed Carbon and not having Need for Speed Most Wanted. That's a better analogy. It's like you might as well have both.
Ridge Racer? Do you have Type 4?
I don't.
Ridge Racer 4?
It's too expensive. I don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, you have that. That must be nice. What you need though is I think it's called Gadget Racers, which is basically Chorokyu. That's a good racing game right there. Actually, it feels really gross, but it's basically Chorokyu before they introduce like all the RPG elements. Okay, well, I would recommend R Racing Evolution because it's cheap enough and it's a very it was a game that took a swing and I think it missed, but it's still special in a lot of ways with its aesthetic, with its soundtrack, of course its underdeveloped story and characters, but it's cool. It's cool enough for, I mean, I paid $5 for mine. My copy was $5. So
same.
I'm pretty sure you can get it out there.
I got mine on GameCube for $5 too at that. And I think even for a GameCube game, this is like the only realistic racing game on GameCube, right?
That's a good question. I played it on PS2. I don't know.
I think so. There isn't a lot of racing games because everybody was just like Double Dash. They got it.
Double Dash is so cool. But anyways, but yeah, that's all we got. So go out there, get yourself a copy of R Racing. We recommend it. That's it.
That's it. See y'all later.
We will see you in the next episode, which is going to be very, very wet.
Welcome to Back of the Rack, a gaming video cast about games long neglected and not respected, games that everyone's heard of or hated, or no one's heard of and loved. We play the games in between the essentials and the unwanted, but mostly we play what we want on this podcast. Join our Discord where you can talk with us and others about Back of the Rack games, and make sure to like and comment on our videos and leave good reviews on the podcast feeds. Your feedback and engagement is the fuel that keeps us going. We hope everyone watching and listening is doing great, and we thank you for joining us today on another episode.